different region. The other one is if you can't make it, or if their schedule just does not have the time to have audition sessions. So these are the reasons why.
I'll throw in one more. If you are up and coming and your reps are trying to get you seen, but they don't trust that you can go in the room yet, they have you do a self-tape and we'll send it in.
Self-tapes, right.
A lot of my friends who are on the ground level and coming up, if their reps feel really strong about them, but they don't want to see them, sometimes they'll have you do a self-tape and say, will you just check out my client?
Right, exactly. So let's start with the basics. Okay, it obviously has to look good. It just can't look bad. And we're going to break down what that means, but I mean, common sense. But sometimes I feel like we have to be very direct and common sense. Camera or iPhone. You can. So I had my girlfriend actually just had an old little video camera. You can get a cheap, pretty decent little video camera, a used one, probably $50 to $100 as long as it's basic quality. Or nowadays, guys, any iPhone or Galaxy or Droid, I mean, they're good enough, and you can even get a
microphone,
what are the things called? Tripod that can hold them as well. So it's either a camera or an iPod. Now, I got a new camera because my agent said, you know what, it's better if you have a nicer camera. We can keep your stuff longer and better if it's of good quality. So I spent like $400 on a pretty decent camera. Small, easy to use. But again, if you have a good phone, which I don't have the latest, like I guess 10s and 11s are really good on iPhones. Those will be fine. Okay, so that's your camera. Here's the thing. So a regular video camera will shoot it horizontally already. But on your iPhones, and I had a problem with this with the student who I was working with the whole time, who did the whole thing remotely. She was somewhere else, and she goes, oh, I know, I did the whole thing vertically. And I was like, oh, my God, I thought you knew that. Always do it landscape or horizontally.
Right.
Always landscape or horizontal. So the phone is never up like this. It's on its side.
So
think of a movie screen or a big screen TV. They're always rectangular and laying on their side.
This is always. I have never once in the thousands of auditions that I've had, ever once they've never wanted it vertically,
right?
Ever.
So this is
you don't have to ask. You don't have to.
Rule.
You're always going to shoot it horizontally.
Always. It has to just think of a movie screen. They're always horizontal like that. Okay, your background. Where do you shoot it? Some people used to use doors because they were plain and simple. But whatever you use, plain, very plain, and but stay away from white. It should maybe a little off-white. I use a gray cloth that I have. I bought a big piece of gray cloth that I have 2 nails on and I hang them down. I have to steam it so there's no big wrinkles. But what that also does when you have a cloth, and that's why I recommend a cloth or a sheet or a very plain blanket, is it helps absorb the light. Sometimes when you're against like a opaque wall, or if you're on YouTube, Mr. Fantabulous is showing some kind of pictures of backgrounds, a blue or something. But if you have like a hard wall, it sometimes reflects the light. And then you get shadows and weird brightness and stuff like that. So that's why I recommend a cloth. But
I also use a gray curtain.
Okay.
What I will say is I was frustrated with how often I was taking it up, putting it down, taking it up, putting it down. That's not something that most people get frustrated about. I'm a short person. It's challenge. I'm sitting on a stair, whatever.
Yeah.
So where my closet is in my room, I hung a curtain between the two things that operates as a curtain for my closet, between my room and my closet.
Right.
And I just stays up at all times, and I use it for I keep it
Self-tapes.
open, and then I close it. Yeah,
Nice.
for my self-tapes. And it was, once I did that, it was so easy, because now all I have to do is set the camera up on the tripod, put my lights on, which we'll talk about lights, but if you're like me and you just want to take it out, just hang something.
Guys, you can get a easy blanket at Ross Dress for Less, or a big piece of cloth at Joann's, or I mean, they're just not that expensive. You can find
Amazon.
something.
Amazon has tons of stuff.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I bought mine on Amazon, and I think mine was like $25, so it was easy. Lighting, you need to be seen. It needs to be clear. The problem is, and this is what I used to do, I used to take my lamps and I'd just take all the shades off. It just casts a lot of shadows. So you want lighting. It's great if you can do it in the daytime. I'm kind of lucky because I have a big sliding glass door.
Yeah, your place
right
is
across
great for that.
from my thing. But I also ended up spending, I think it was $50. It was on Amazon, and I got
Soft
a
boxes?
lighting kit, and it's 2 lights on a stand, but that they have the umbrellas. They have the umbrellas in front of them, the little white umbrellas that dull the shadowing. And even a third one, which I've never needed. I've never actually needed a third one. So I would 2 tall lights, 1 small light with a umbrella, white umbrella to kill the shadows. Not that much money, $50 for the entire thing. Easy to set up. I used to work with my buddy Emilio, who would take the entire thing down, and now I just kind of just take the light bulbs out and kind of shove them. But it takes me 5 to 10 minutes to set up my whole package, and that's the curtain, steam it, the lights, and we'll talk about the sound later. But the main thing is no big shadows. You can use natural light, and if you do use things like lamps with no shades on them and stuff, just make sure you have another one to contrast to kill the shadow of the other one.
So, Sean, why are you trying to make sure there's no shadow?
Just because it's distracting. It's really distracting. You don't want to have
somebody watching it thinking about anything other than your performance.
Exactly. You don't want to give, it's hard enough. Never give them an excuse to reject you. They can be 1 a.m, irritated that they just got a whole new bunch of casting things, and they open up the thing and they see you standing there with a bunch of bad shadows behind you, and they get irritated and just go, forget it, you know? So you just don't want to give that excuse, and it's just mainly the distraction.
What I use, but you have to be careful, the soft boxes are more foolproof. What I use is a ring light, but I have to be careful with it. The ring lights are great because they're inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon.
People are using them for TikTok all the time.
They're multi-purpose use. Yeah. And I got one that had both white and orange tint that I can put on depending, but I know how to put my overhead lights with it and how to slant my ring light to make sure that I am that I'm not casting shadows for exactly that reason. So if you want to go the ring light route, I love my ring light. I highly recommend people get one in general.
Range of price?
You can get one for $40. You can get one for $120.
Okay.
So it depends on what you're looking for. Mine was $80. Okay. And I got it off of Amazon. Actually, a friend got it for my birthday for me. I asked for a ring light. Really lovely gift.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But I use that thing every single day.
Yeah.
And it's got its own tripod on it. If you're using your phone, attached to the ring light is a place to just put your phone. I use my camera on a tripod, but if I'm in a rush, you can just put it right on there, and it's the easiest setup on the planet.
Can I ask just real quick, how portable is that thing?
Very portable. It has a case. It takes me about 2 minutes to collapse it and put it in a case that's...
Could you stick it in a...
It might be 2 feet tall and 6 inches wide in a fabric case, zipped up.
Okay.
And
so definitely driving somewhere you could take
the sticks of that, and then there's the actual ring part. But yes, driving, I've taken it.
Throw it on a carry-on in a plane if you had to?
You probably could. Probably could. Depends. And they have different size ring lights as well. But yes, and there's even ones now that you can get that attach onto your phone.
Wow.
That are smaller if you're going on the road and you're just trying to, in a hotel room, do like a makeshift situation.
Right. So a lot of different options for lighting. I did this order kind of weird because I'm talking about equipment. I just want to go to sound next. Again, your phones will be fine, but you can also, no, I'm not going to speak to that because maybe you can, but what I did for $40, I think it was 20 and 40, I think it was with the mic. No, it was actually 25 and 20. So it's like, 45. I got a microphone, and then I got a little stand to put it on. And that just
what kind of
plugs
microphone? A
right
directional?
into, like a directional microphone. It looks like the big stick. It looks kind of like this, but it would be longer, just longer and thinner. But I put that on a little stand, and it just plugs right into my video camera. There's a mic slot right there. It's like a headphone jack in my camera. My thing, it's a good mic, but it has an on and off switch. And if I leave it on, and I don't think it has no light or indicator light on it, I'll tell you that you got to just be careful with this because they take batteries. If you leave it on, your battery will get burned out, and then you'll record something and you'll realize you didn't get anything. Or, it's a lot of times I've taped and I didn't have it turned on. I didn't realize because, again, it has no light to say that. So that's the only thing I have to keep on. I burn out batteries, and I've let it turn off, unfortunately, by accident. But that's what I do for sound. Just, again, make it clear, because if you don't and you have your camera too far back, I remember my manager, Gary, said, the sound's not good. It's too, echoey and things like that. How about you for your sound?
I have a Rode mic that attaches to the top of my camera.
That's great.
And it works pretty well, although I will say that what I would like to invest in, but again, these things take time, I would like to get a lav, because recently I feel like that is the best way, especially when I have more movement pieces and I'm like kind of, when there's a little bit more room, I think that's the best way to go, but it is expensive to get a nice one, so...
Right.
Sometimes
so
I borrow friends.
A good directional will cover all that.
Yep.
It covers that pretty well.
Yep.
All right. So that's
probably the exact one that I have.
That's the equipment. Again, we're if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. If you're not, you can go over and try to check it out. Mr. Fantabulous is throwing up some great pictures and things for you guys to look at for equipment. Now that you've got it ready, if you want to know about how you prepare for the character and things like that, please listen to our audition, breaking down a scene, how to audition, things like that. But here are the basics. You want to have a reader read the other lines of the scene. They need to stand right, not directly behind, but just near the camera, like maybe a half-inch off-center either side of the camera for an eye line. Because what you don't understand is geometry. If you're, by the time, 6-8 feet, I'm looking over sideways, you look a lot further than right next to the camera. So they stand right next to the camera. Now, the best thing to do, obviously, is get someone who has some emotion, who has some sort of, can act a little bit with you, because the better they act with you, the better you'll probably do. I mean,
some might say acting is reacting, Sean.
Acting is reacting, and it'd be better to react off of someone good than someone who's got their face in the page. And then... the other thing I do when I do self-tapes, and this is very smart too, is even though the directional mic is pointing at you closer, you want your reader to just be softer than you. Rehearse it. I like to rehearse it full level, especially if it's, let's say it's a fighting scene, right? And you're yelling at me and I'm yelling back and we're, at each other. But then when we shoot it, I'm going to go probably half of the volume of what we were doing, but still give you the energy and the emotion and have you rehearsed in that kind of vibe. So you want them to be quieter. They want to stand by the camera, and, absolute no, they never are in front of the camera with you, ever, 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 ever. You do not do, even though, it's easy to work off someone who's near you, especially what if it's an intimate scene and you're talking really closely, but they are never, ever in front of the camera. Quietly to the side, and that's it.
Sean, what about the gender of the reader? Does the gender of the reader need to match the gender of the character they are playing?
No. If you can, great.
If it's a grandparent, a kid?
It just doesn't matter that much. It doesn't. It'd be nice. It's great. But you certainly don't go, oh, I'd love to do this, but I have to find somebody that fits. No, they don't have to be cast. They just need to give you... enough for you to react off of. That's a good question, though. The other thing, so when you do your scene, you're gonna do it full volume. You'll test the sound. You'll be working off the other person. Again, look at my audition podcasts about this. You're doing your scene. There's a whole the rules apply, and I've talked about this in my auditioning when you get into the room about physicality. You know, do not use props. Do not use props. Just, you know, pantomime most everything. Don't let that stuff distract you with, you know, holding up. Sometimes if you have a scene with the phone, that's not the worst thing in the world, but just pantomime everything. Physicality. I just had to coach a woman who had to be alone in a bed. She's dying of cancer in a bed. Well, you can't do that in an audition. So you just kind of, you make it work within the space you have. So you can do a sitting scene. You can lower your camera and be in a chair. But what I had her do is just kind of lean back and kind of vertically sit straight with her back straight in the chair to kind of look like she's in a bed.
So what are the positions you're allowed to do, Sean, or able to do? Standing?
You stay in the screen. Just stay within the screen. And if you have a physical scene, that's fine. You can back the camera up and follow you up and down, like I did that with an audition, following me up and down. Or it's pulled back a little more, depending on how big your backdrop is, so you can show your physicality a little bit. But usually the framing, guys, is from right below your chest to about 2 to 3 inches above your head. That's the frame. 90% of the time I've heard that. That's your frame it's the best for you to see stuff. If you have very important things to do with your hands, then lift them up to make sure they're in the frame. You just have to look at the frame, and you can walk to the left and the right and ask your camera person, how much room do I have? You want to keep all your actions in the center of the camera. Even if you're doing a fight scene and you have to move over and stuff, you want to find it within the center. If they're in the middle of a scene, it ends and then starts again, you can like kind of turn off camera a little bit and then come back and continue the scene. Like I had to tape a girl who was at one location, and then instantly she was at another location, and then instantly was at another location. So we just did a little shift, turn to the side, come back and face the camera. But it's basically working the space that you have. Like if you see me on YouTube right now, that's my, I put my hands up and go like that, and that's my frame. That's how you work within it.
Sean, you mentioned your hands a couple of times.
Yes.
In your hands, are there your sides or not?
Again, that was that casting director thing. If you can be off book and you feel 100% comfortable, then don't. But if you're not, and so let's say you get this last minute, just try to obviously keep them lower, at the lowest part of the frame possible. The top of the page at the lowest part of the frame possible. So they're not, really up inside the frame. Again, to keep the frame clear and make that more about your acting. The other thing, when you're done, follow the instructions. A lot of self-tapes, they send you instructions. We would like a full body slate, your name, your height, what city you're in, the role you're reading for. Just follow the instructions. Follow them. It's pretty easy. Now, they'll say a full body slate. My camera isn't great with the pull, the focus,
Zoom.
Close up is the zoom. Yeah, zoom in and out. And they just kind of, and I do have something where I can shift down and shift up, but if they say a full body slate, that's not the same thing. A full body slate means
you see it once.
They see it once. So what I do is I'll have them in frame, just say in my chest to head frame, name, height, whatever else they need, and then I'll just pull the camera back, take a few seconds of their full body, and then I'll just edit those together. So you have that. Sometimes some people, and I ask everybody, sometimes people want me to stay all the way back, full body, and they'll just say their name, height, or whatever really loud, and that will be their slate. It's up to them. But they just need to see that. And they will also say... So
Sean, just to be clear, you're talking about the people who you're taping for
people
right
who
now.
I'm taping, yeah, exactly.
The students that you're taping.
Students or, actors who are auditioning. It's up to you, but they just need it. They just need it however you want to get it. So a full body slate, let me clarify, is not a scan up and down. A lot of times they will say that. Take the camera and go from head to toe, back up. Just read the instructions. They're usually pretty clear.
And I want to reiterate with those instructions, in this business, people are always looking for reasons to say no to something. It's interesting. I help coordinate our intern program here at the network. And right now, if I get an internship cover letter with a typo, I'm like relieved because it gives me a reason to not look further into that that
Right.
opportunity. So, and you guys can hear we have another producer very excited about wrestling in the booth as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I think so that what Sean is saying is so important because not only do those directions matter for casting, it gives them a reason to say no to you before they even watch you audition.
Right. I remember my ex-wife used to work at Fox, and they'd say, we want a comedy. Comedies are known to be 90 to 100 pages, period. They would get the stack, and, you know, she'd get to thumb through them. 111, 112 in the trash can. 101, 102 in the trash can.
Yeah.
That's it. Just because they just don't get the page count, and they don't get it. They don't get the way things are, and those weren't even rules that they set. They're just rules that you should know. So this is easier. They're giving you specific. Your look. Same thing as any audition. We had Danny Roebuck talk about how he goes things fully 100% with the glue and the hair and the whole thing. But as the casting director said, he's fantastic and can get away with it. I like to have a solid hint of the clothes. If you are...
Give an example, Sean, for police officer.
So police officer, if you had a black shirt that you could button up in the neck, maybe put a black tie on top of it, that's a good assimilation of a police officer. If you were supposed to be, like I used to have my skinny T-shirt was what I used to call it. So it was a T-shirt that was 2 sizes too big, and when they would say, he's emaciated, which I got a lot of, he's thin, wiry, gangly, I'd put on my big T-shirt to make me look thinner. If I was a politician or a lawyer, then I would put on a suit and a tie, just things like that. Just dress the part. And hair, if you're a scrungy, homeless person, I'd let my beard grow out a little bit and have my hair a little more messed up. That's about the extent for guys. Roxy, women?
I'd like to do the same thing, like you were talking about with your friend Danny. He goes more over the top, which has worked for him. I don't do that. I'm more in your camp where I like to allude to it, right? So, like, if I'm going out for a girl who's at the pool party that has a fight with somebody, I'm not going to wear a full-blown bathing suit, but I might wear something a little more casual, like a sundress or something that shows the same kind of energy. And for what you're talking about with the head to toe, even if they're not looking for the head to toe in the slate, I still will dress myself head to toe to help me get into character.
To be
so
fully,
if I'm a businesswoman, I might be wearing small heels, even though you're not going to see those because it affects your posture, which can be really helpful. Same thing with our hair. You really need to make sure that your hair is in character, depending on what your hair looks like. But for me, if I'm a professional, my hair is back, it's out of my face, a tight bun kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for makeup, unless it is a character that really dictates otherwise, you want to be pretty natural because they want to know what you look like so they know what they can do with you. So especially if you're trying to play younger, you want to make sure you don't have crazy too much makeup on. That will make you look older. And it is okay to have some makeup, but you don't want to do something so glamorous and out of the park unless that is what the character is asking for. You don't want to look the hottest you can look. You want to look like the natural character would look. Right. So it's different than going to a wedding or an event. You're trying to show your everyday face.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. That's great. And when you get done your audition, however you transfer it into your editing software, you have to have some sort of editing software. I use iMovie. Every computer now has pretty basic editing software. You load it in, you make sure that you have that you don't, when you edit it, that you have a clean beginning. If there's an entrance, you sit down, then you start talking. Make sure you have all that in there. Don't cut all that stuff out. I use little fade to blacks in between each scene very quickly. And then what's the software you use? Premiere. Okay. So
I went from Final Cut to Premiere this year, and I have to say, if you're deciding between the two, Premiere is the one to go with. Oh, I'm a huge Premiere fan now. I love it. Yeah, it's very easy.
Yeah. And iMovie's super easy too. Maybe I was just thinking maybe we could do a whole thing about editing your self-tapes. We could do another episode.
And if you have taped this on your phone, you might not even need to put it in any kind of editing thing.
Yeah,
if you've taped it on your phone, you can literally trim if this is something you don't have to piece together.
Unbelievable. I know. I'm learning that right now. I didn't even know I could do that as I'm starting to learn about videos. So if you have a really nice
phone and you're taking it on those, then sometimes you can literally send it straight from your phone. Just double check your work.
And then the other thing, lastly, just send correctly too. That's another set of instructions. They'll say separate files, slate separate, and they'll even say how to label it sometimes. Read those, make sure. If not, I usually put the slate at the beginning and the scenes, scene 1 and scene 2 and scene 3 in sequential order in one file. If they don't ask for that, then they will specifically say send files separately, send more than one file, label it this way. Sean Whalen, all caps, the character name, and then scene 1, SC1, TK1. That's scene 1, take 1, or slate, or something like that. And they'll tell you how to label it and send you. But I do feel we'll probably have to do one about editing sometimes because it can be a little more intense. It took me a second to learn. It seems easy to us probably at this time.
Yeah.
But guys, honestly, you get a software and you go to YouTube and Google, and you'll be able to learn it pretty quickly.
Yes.
It's not that difficult. My story from the set was I was in, I could not make this audition for a Nickelodeon show, and the spot was for somebody who was an out of work or a very new actor that still was waiting tables. So he was working this young woman's quinceañera. And one of the guests recognized the waiter. She was petrified because she saw this horrifying independent movie, and this is this waiter's only role. So I'm that guy. And so we had to have her point of view seeing him scary and then be completely nerdy afterwards and going, oh yeah, my movie just came out in the theaters and things like that.
Wait, I'm super confused, Sean.
Okay. So I am a waiter. I'm a waiter at a girl's quinceañera.
Okay, in a movie.
In a TV show.
In a TV show.
This is what I'm reading for.
Okay.
This is an audition. This was a joke. The joke is the girl who is terrified of this character in the movie comes to the quinceañera and sees me, who is the character in the movie, because I'm an actor who only had one role, and my one role was in that scary movie. So she is terrified at this party because the waiter is the scary guy that she remembers from the movie. And I come up to them in a scary type way, but then immediately go, hey guys, not to push my own stuff, but I have a movie coming out this week, very nerdy. So I played it kind of over the top with those two distinct things, sent in the self-tape, instantly got it. And next day they go, you booked it, you're starting next week.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wow, that's really crazy. So then I'm on the set.
So you never you booked it off a self-tape.
And I just went with my gut instincts and what I thought was funny. And I had done a lot of kids shows by then, so I really knew the rhythm of it. And then I went on set and met the casting director, and she was like, wow, and you did it so different. Everyone else I told as the casting director to do it this way, dark and scary the whole way. And I go, but then the joke isn't ever going to be there if you don't show the contrast between the nerdy guy and the scary guy, right? And she's like, yeah, that was kind of interesting. And that just goes to show you that sometimes your instincts are better. I popped this one out. This was literally like I got home, said, oh, I got 20 minutes to knock this out, and my instincts were fine. And that's why I've told you guys a million times, if you have a bad date, you'll know what I mean if you listen to my audition, it's not you sometimes. The casting director, who I had very talented friends read for that audition, sent them down a wrong path. And so none of them had the opportunity to do a good job. So sometimes, after a while, one year I had so many bad casting director experiences that I just said, let me self-tape, and I booked a couple things more off of self-taping than going in the room.
Wow.
It's not the best idea, and it never happened again. I've only had really great casting directors since, but that is my self-tape story. Yeah. So listen, we will do a thing. I think we should do something on editing. I think it's easy, and we can walk through and how to do stuff and get kind of technical.
Just one quick question for you, Sean, for the people who are out there listening, who are starting off, don't have a lot of money, cannot buy a camera, a microphone.
Yes.
Is it better to put yourself on whatever you can,
Yes.
whatever you have, and send it in?
Yeah, you can use your phone, make sure it sounds okay. Most phones are really good. I mean, I was filming something in a grocery store the other day and was shocked how good it sounded.
So worst case scenario, you can always control your
Phone.
background, have
Yep.
some kind of a blank, nondescript background.
So
use your
easy.
phone and try to get a little bit of light. Natural light is free.
Yep. Natural light is great, but if you have to take shades off, just make sure there's as little shadow as possible.
Okay.
So that's what you can do. So, as always, where can we find you?
Everywhere at Roxy Striar.
Mr. Fantabulous?
Guys can find me everywhere at Jeffrey Seagram.
Everywhere now?
I believe, yeah. I changed it on my Instagram.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Jeff!
Wow.
I think. We'll have to
Jeffrey
check after.
Seagram.
That is
Yeah.
more
I don't
tabulous.
believe him. He
That
would've
is more
told us.
tabulous than anything.
I went to it's the same username, but I changed the title. I hope I did it right.
No.
And I am everywhere at Sean Whalen actor, except on TikTok, which I got in trouble for too. Sean Whalen 19 there.
Oh,
So-
he's still Jeffrey Crane
And
Graham.
then
He did not tell us the
please
truth.
email us if you want us to come and see you, or if there's any topic you want us to talk about. But any ratings and reviews, please go to the YouTube and Apple
Podcast.
Podcast and things like that. As always, thank you for letting me be part of your journey.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.